Hi everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and today I am here with the May 2020 Flavor of the Month card kit for Scrapping for Less. This month's theme is Let's Encourage One Another, and as you can see there are the sketches, and those are the 4 cards I made to go along with the sketches. That is my sneak peek card. And I'm going to start out by going through how I made the sneak peek card. Now I will tell you I did not leave the coloring in for all of these, but I do show you which markers I used. There really wasn't a ton of coloring that I did with this, but because it's kind of a long video anyway and there was nothing special with the coloring, I decided to remove that. Now I start out by stamping with embossing ink and heat embossing the Easy Peasy stamp set by Scrapping for Less of the lemons, the lemon flower, and then the slice of lemon. And then I just colored those up. And as part of the banana split level, you received embossing powder from Stamp Pendus, and mine is it's kind of cool. It's a cool effect to it. It's kind of a mixed color with some oranges and pinks and yellows, and so I stamped it once with white embossing powder and once with that. I do end up using those on the card, the one that I stamped with the Stamp Pendus embossing powder. So I picked out my papers from the kit that I was going to use, and like I said, this is from collection 2 called Easy Peasy, and I cut out pieces that were 4 inches. These are A2, well, this is an A2 size card, so it's 5.5 by 4.25. So I cut the back panel down to 4 inches by 5.25, and then the strip that goes along the left side is 4 inches by 2 inches. The strip that's going to go all the way across is 5.5 inches by 1/2 inch. And then the circle that I used to cut out the piece for the sentiment is a 2-inch circle. And I love this sentiment. There's actually a funny backstory with this Easy Peasy Lemon Squeezy, and when I saw it, I just loved it because years ago when my son is 25 now, but when he was probably about 8, he was the only boy in my family with my brother. All my brothers had all girls, so it was my son who was about 8, and then at that time I think there was 7 girls. So needless to say, he was kind of overwhelmed with girls at that time. And we had a swimming pool when we lived in our other house, and they were all swimming in the swimming pool, and the girls were teasing them and messing with them in the pool. And all of a sudden he just stands up in the middle of the pool and screams, "Easy Peasy Lemon Squeezy," and runs out of the pool and into the house crying because the kids were messing with him so bad. And why he said that particular thing, I have no idea, but it was just very funny. And as soon as I saw this and I made this card, I had to send it to my son and say, "Oh my goodness, look at this." So that was kind of a funny thing. But then I made a double bow with the twine that was part of this kit. I cut out the images after I colored them. I just, I fussy cut all of the images today that I cut out. If you've watched any of my recent videos, I haven't been using my scan and cut lately, and it's not because there's anything wrong with it or that I love it any less. But with everything going on with the coronavirus and COVID-19, I've been working from home, and so I had to turn my office desk or my craft room desk into an office desk and move some of my stuff over there, and it's a big pain for me to get over to the scan and cut and move all the stuff so that I can use it. So when it's just simple images like this, I really haven't used it much because, like I said, I have all my craft stuff that is normally on my desk over there because I have to work from my desk, so that's why. But after I kind of created that double bow, I just used the little lemon as the embellishment kind of on there on top of the bow. And then, like I said, I stamped the sentiment, and then I popped it up with fun foam on the back of that circle. And that circle was a 2-inch circle. I don't remember if I said that. And then on the inside, I used a little flower and then the lemon slice, and just added that to the inside of the card. And then I just didn't want that lemon to be flapping around, so I just used a piece of foam tape to kind of adhere that down and make sure that it was stable on there. So that was my sneak peek card. My next card, I am using collection number 1, called Love Big. And with this collection, you received Love Big paper by Scrapping for Less, Benny the Bigfoot stamp by Scrapping for Less, Flowers by Jolie's, and Chalk Heart stickers by Sticko. And so I take this image, and I'm using sketch number 1 for this, and the measurements of it is another A2 size card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I made the back panel the 4 inches by 5 1/4. The sentiment circle is a little less than 1 1/2 inches that I used, but the panel that he was stamped onto is 2 inches by 3 1/4 inches. The strip in the background is 3/4 of an inch by 4 inches. And I decided I have this kind of fun flowery stamp that, not stamp, cutter, punch, there we go, I'll get it. And so I decided to use that. So that's about, actually I'm going to measure it because I really don't know what size that is. I don't think it's 1 1/2 inches though, but maybe it is. Let's see. No, actually it's about 1 3/4, so it's pretty close. And you know, with the scallop, is I was measuring it kind of from scallop to scallop. But so I was originally stamped this onto the white, and I was just going to use that, but then for me that was just too much white on the card with the panel with the Benny on it stamped onto it. So then I decided to use the same punch out a piece of the pattern paper, and then just cut out the sentiment Love Big from a smaller circle die. And so that's what I ended up doing there. And I have not been cutting all, normally I cut all of my cardstock down into card bases right away so that I have them all ready when I'm making cards. But because I've been doing so many fun fold cards lately, and sometimes you need different size cards, you know, not just a regular standard A2 size card type panel to make the fun folds. So I've been actually leaving it and kind of cutting them out one by one as I'm doing it. But like I said, for this one, I pretty much just followed the sketch, other than, like I said, I am going to end up cutting that out of a smaller circle and then just adding it to that punch again with the pattern paper. And then I'm just going to adhere it all down according to the sketch. I did end up popping up that sentiment piece just with a little fun foam, or not fun foam, foam squares. And then I use the embellishment flowers just to, one, go along with the sketch, but just to give it a little something extra. The next card I am going to make is from actually sketch number 3, and I'm using collection number 2, the same one that I used for the sneak peek. And with collection number 2, you get the Easy Peasy paper by Scrapping for Less, Easy Peasy stamp by Scrapping for Less, enamel dots by Gina Marie Designs, and yellow twine by Doris. And I am going to be following the sketch number 3. And for that sketch, you will need, this is a 5 1/2 inch square card. So I cut down a standard piece of cardstock to 5 1/2 inches wide by the 11 inches long. And then I just folded that in half to create that. And the panels are going to actually cover the entire card, so they're going to be cut at 5 1/2 inches long, all of them. Now the top one is 2 3/4 by 5 1/2 inches. The middle one is 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/2 inches, and the bottom piece is 2 inches by the 5 1/2 inches. Then for the back strip there behind the circle, it's 4.5 inches by 2 inches is what I cut down for that. The circles, I do have a scallop circle die, but I couldn't find it. So I just used 2 circle dies to cut out 2 circles. The largest one from the pattern paper was 3 3/16 inches, and then the smaller one with the sentiment was 2.5 inch circle. And so that's what I ended up using for this card. Then I took the pieces or the stamp from and cut it out, and then I used that for the embellishment kind of up on the top of the card. And I did a slice of the lemon. I also popped up just the area that I did the sentiment on for the circle with the sentiment. And then I popped up just the lemon because it was kind of hanging off of the side there. And for the sentiment, I heat embossed the Squeeze the Day, and I use the embossing powder from the kit, from that Stamp Pendus kit. And it's kind of hard to see in the video, but you can read it perfectly fine when you're actually looking at it. I don't know what's going on, if you can hear all of that that's going on above me, but somebody's breaking down my house apparently. Anyways, so I cut my stamp in half because it is all one word, all one like phrase all together, and I wanted to separate it so that it fit in that circle. So I just snipped it, and it says Squeeze and then the day below it. And like I said, I did that with the heat embossing. So that was part of that. Now the heat embossing, which is, like I said, you got as part of the banana split level. The embossing powder is from Stamp Pendus, and it's a random color that happened to be the one that I got. The You Got This die by Courtney Kreber. Courtney used to be on our design team, and she guest designs for us all the time. She actually started the same time I did. When she started the design team is when I started the design team at Scrapping for Less, so we kind of came up together with that. But she was able to help create one of the stamp sets for this Flavor of the Month card kit, so we were really excited for her for that. And like I said, then the You Got This die that she created by also for this collection, or this card kit that came out this month. So that was really exciting for her. But as part of the Banana Split kit, you also receive the Raindrops and the Cloud stencil by Scrapping for Less, which I am really excited about getting. I got a different one from another company, but it was like grass and hillsides, and I loved it because it was kind of both on the same stencil, and that's kind of how this one is. And I love some ink blending, so I'm sure you will be seeing some ink blending later in the month when I'm making some projects with this kit for design team projects. But I actually love ink blending, so I'm super excited about these stencils. And then you also received a sequin pack by Scrapping for Less, and that was just random depending on what you got there. So, like I said, to finish this off, I did take a little yellow ink from Your Next Stamp. It was just a pad that I have sitting on my desk. It's actually from a previous Flavor of the Month card kit, and it's a cube. It's sunflower yellow, and I just kind of brushed it along the sides of the circle just to give it a little more color. And I added those enamel dots at the end there, just again to go along with the sketch. And that will pretty much finish up this card. Now my next card I am making with collection number 4, and it's called Little Lady. And you receive Little Lady paper by Scrapping for Less, Little Lady stamp by Scrapping for Less, enamel dots by Gina Marie Designs, ephemera by Scrapping for Less, and red crochet thread. So what I'm using is the ephemera for this. So I'm going to cut down the red card from the cardstock, and I'm using a red card base. This is a 5.5 and A2 size card, so 5.5 by 4.25. And then I'm just going to be using some of the ephemera. As you can see, I'm using a piece, or I mean a tape roll to make my circle. I don't have a circle die that is large enough to cut that out, so I just cut it out by hand. I traced it along the back with the tape roll, just made sure that it was kind of in the right size range, and for it the size was about 4 7/8 of an inch is what I used, is what it ended up being. And then I just kind of created that half circle there, and I'm going to put that onto the card. I love that pattern paper for the little leaves with the ladybugs. I just think it works out perfectly. And so I cut that down to the 2 3/4 inch square, and I do pop that up with some foam tape, and then I'm going to kind of embellish it with the ephemera to decorate that with some of the flowers as well as the ladybugs that we have there. I love ladybugs. They're some of my favorite things to color, so I was really excited when I saw this. I did decide that I was going to stamp the sentiment directly onto the card, so I end up doing that before I taped this down so it didn't get in my way, which I was glad. And I used the sentiment, every little thing will be all right. But I was just kind of, like I said, figuring out what I wanted to use and how I wanted to use it. And then I just used some VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp the sentiment on there. Make sure that that was on there good and clear. And like I said, I wanted to do that before because I did pop up that square, and so I wanted to make sure that that didn't get in my way when I was trying to stamp my sentiment, which I do very often, and I forget, and then I have to try to work around a finished card for the most part, except for the sentiment, by creating something in there. So I do end up adding some foam squares to the back of those flowers and the flower and the leaf, because they are kind of hanging off quite a bit of that, and I just didn't want it to get smashed, so I just kind of stick that back there. And then that's going to finish off that card. Now for my final card, I will have to apologize because I forgot to zoom out after I was showing the markers, so you can't really see me put the card together, but I really just followed the sketch, except I turned it horizontal instead of vertical. Now this is the set that Courtney helped create, or that Courtney created, and so the collection, it is collection number 3, and it's Weathered Together. Weathered Together paper by Scrapping for Less, Weathered Together stamp by Courtney, Creeber, Enamel Dots by Gina Marie Designs and Echo Park, and then Turquoise Organza Ribbon by Doris. So I just followed this sketch pretty much to the T. It was a Scrapping for Less one. It's sketch number 2. The strip in the background is a 5 inches by 1 3/4 inches. The oval that I used is about 3 5/8 inches by about 2 3/4 inches, and the sentiment strip that I used was 3 inches by 1/2 an inch. So I'm going to kind of leave the coloring in here as I kind of walk through how I put the card together, since you can't actually see it. Now when I did do the coloring, because they were right next to each other and I was using Copics and I didn't want it to bleed into each other, I just went every other strip and colored it, and then went back to the bottom and started coloring up. And that just gave it an extra minute or so to be able to dry so that it didn't bleed into the next color that was there. Now the other thing that you get as part of the Scrapping for Less kit is your cardstock, and you will receive one 8.5 by 11 sheet of each color: Wild Cherry, Orange Fizz, Lemon Drop, Grout Gray, Sour Apple, and Blue Raspberry. And for this card, you see me have there, I actually have the Blue Raspberry, but then I changed my mind and I end up using the Lemon Drop with it. So that is the card itself. You will also receive the 2 sheets of Neenah 110-pound Classic Crest Smooth Solar White cardstock, and 4 A2 sized envelopes. So that's it. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this, and make sure you hop on to the next person for this reveal. Thank you, take care, and everyone stay healthy.